welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today for the special Veterans Day session of STEM Community Lunchtime Conversations. My name is Jeremy Babender, and hosting with me today is Beth Nickel from Arizona Science Center. Today we'll be talking about STEM and Arizona military installations. Arizona is home to 7 different military bases, including Luke Air Force Base, which is one of the largest bases in the world and training for the F-16 Falcon pilots. In Yuma, Marine Air Corps Station spreads over 3,000 acres, and the Yuma Proving Grounds gives the U.S. Army the chance to test some of the most sophisticated weapons, such as artillery systems. Fort Huachuca, the Army installation located in Sierra Vista, is the headquarters of the U.S. Army Strategic Communications Command, while Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson is best known for the location of the Aerospace Maintenance and Regeneration Group. Camp Navajo is an expansive U.S. Army training facility and ammunition storage depot near Flagstaff, and the Barry M. Goldwater Range in Phoenix is used for 5 live fire and bombing exercises by the U.S. Air Force and Marine Corps pilots. One also important thing I wanted to mention we're very proud of is that we have Army veterans on our team that we're also celebrating Veterans Day.
So in honor of Veterans Day, this special segment features an amazing set of military professionals who will tell us about current military projects that promote STEM career opportunities. Our presenters for this session are Lyle Barksdale, the Strategic Engagements Officer with the Defense Intelligence Agency, retired United States Naval Captain Pete Luminaski, the Director of the USS Phoenix Cold War Monument Foundation, and Airman First Class Nicholas Loftus, Explosive Ordnance Disposal with Luke Air Force Base. So thank you all very much for joining us today to speak with this group. The first part of today's conversation, our presenters will provide information about the current military projects that promote STEM career opportunities.
And thank you for our 3 presenters for being here. So first, starting off with Lyle Barksdale, with the Strategic Engagements Officer with the Defense Intelligence Agency. Take it away, Lyle.
Thanks, sir. So 5 minutes, so we're going to jump right in it. Only background to give you is I was 8 years in the military before I got out, then joined the DIA as a contractor and switched over to government in 2015. So Defense Intelligence, everyone, we're talking about military, right? So Defense Intelligence Agency is part of the DoD. We fall under Department of Defense. When you think military intelligence, DIA. So this is a quick overview of where we are. So about 3/4 of the population is civilian, about the rest of them, 26% as active military. About half of those civilians are prior military. We have about 16,500 employees everywhere. Going on to the next little bubble there. 50% of the workforce is outside of the NCR, which is the National Capital Region, DC area. 144 countries. And then pulling it back to you guys, Arizona, right? Where are we in Arizona? So the Joint Reserve Intelligence Program, JRIP. So this is a program set up for peacetime operations for reserve military components to do intelligence gathering activities, and there's some of them in Phoenix. And as you mentioned, Fort Huachuca, which is the U.S. Army Intelligence Center, that's where all of the Army and the military goes to get their military intelligence training, all right there in your guys' backyard. So next slide, please. All right, so there's a whole bunch going on the slide. Really what I want to highlight is in your top left corner there is all the different seals for the intelligence community. So all source foundational military intelligence. DIA is the lead producer of all source foundational military intelligence. So we got the tank, the helicopter to the boat, the military member right there. So what is foundational military intelligence? It's how high, how fast, how capable a foreign military power is, right? So we're pulling information from all of the IC to look at and answer those problem sets for all those customers on the right, White House, Congress, Pentagon, Joint Staff, all the combatant commands across the world, service acquisition, and I gotta move this box, I can see the rest there, warfighter, and there's a boat on there, so that's more acquisition stuff. Again, a lot going on the slide, we're gonna go down right through here. This is an intelligence cycle. So collect and exploit, right? So we've got to gather intelligence. It's one of the things we do. Analyze it, take a look at it, see where it is applicable, what reports can be written, early warning, what's going on. and then disseminate to that customer base. And throughout the IC, feedback starts to loop back again, more collection and exploitation analysts, circle continues. Next slide, please. Okay, so science technology. So science technology is a big part of what we do, because one of the biggest things is collect, right? Or collect intelligence. So within that collection, we're doing everything. There's a list that I just pulled off of our webpage, which I'll give you guys later. We're doing everything. If you can think of something with science and technology, there's someone at DIN doing it. If you go back 20 years, we had artists painting pictures of intelligence. You never would have thought of that, right? Everything that's going on, we have people doing it. Exploiting scientists asking some US troops on the ground to go take a cup of air in some region so we could send it back and do analysis on and say, hey, there's a chemical plant 30 miles this way, or anything you can think of. So science technology is a huge part of what DIA does, and it's moving more and more toward that. AI, you see the picture of satellite, and the picture in the bottom right, they're analyzing some RPGs. I'm not sure how I'm doing on time, but I kind of flew through this, didn't I? Yeah, I think there's one more slide, but it's just the wrap. But yeah, that's where to get more information. So these are just some of the areas, the different departments that are doing some of those things I just talked about, measuring signal intelligence. So a couple years ago, several years ago on the news, it came out that North Korea was had an earthquake underground, earthquake, and then US officials said no, it was actually nuclear weapons underneath. Being tested. MASINT is the science discipline that was able to gather that information and be able to say that no, they're not doing that. Missile Space and Intelligence Center, it's Huntsville, Alabama. More PhDs in Huntsville, Alabama than anywhere else in the United States. That's because of that. Missile Space and Intelligence Center. Space counter space, underground facilities. I'm not sure how much time I have, but underground facilities is really interesting. These guys, individuals are mapping out the underground facilities literally without going into them, not knowing where they are, being able to take a look and map it out and say, hey, here's where this bunker is, or here where this underground facility is. Here's how deep it is. Here's the shafts. Here's what's the best ammunition to make it go away. Joint Foreign Military Program, taking foreign equipment, taking it apart, putting it back together, seeing how it works, seeing what its capabilities are, which pushes to that acquisition part with Congress. We need funding to put toward this technology because they're doing this with this technology, so we can counter it. National Media Exploitation Center, hard drives, CDs, computers, getting that information out of those devices and collecting it and seeing what's going on. National Medical Intelligence Center, they're probably pretty busy these days. One of the previous kind of 6 things that had a big impact with the Ebola crisis and H1N1 virus. And future capabilities, what's everybody doing next, which I kind of already talked about. So this was quick. We do a ton of stuff. We're everywhere in the world. There's a place for everybody. Keep your nose clean. We do have polygraphs and drug tests, so you're not going to get in the door if you've done some bad things in that direction. But one thing I also highlight is I'm in a government job. I never expected to be a communication officer. I never joined anything to be a communication officer. But because there's so many things and so much going on, so much availability, that's just where my path took me. And you hear that a lot from people at DIA. I came here as a chemist and now I'm an analyst, or because I saw that and I liked it and now I'm doing that. There's a lot of room to move around within the agency.
I'm hoping this will spark some conversations and questions as we get to the breakouts. Hopefully you can stay around and people can continue to ask kind of what that experience is, because I'm amazed how many different opportunities there are with STEM, with just even that list you provided there. So thanks for going into that, Lyle.
I appreciate it.
So next I want to cue retired United States Naval Captain Pete Lemiansky, director of the USS Phoenix Cold War Monument Foundation.
Thanks a lot, Jeremy, and thanks to all of you for having me. Really appreciate it. My name is Pete Lumiansky. I am a retired Navy captain, chopper pilot. I've been living in Phoenix for the last 30 years. And mostly I've been working on a project having to do with saving parts of the submarine named after the city of Phoenix, the USS Phoenix, SSN 702, a nuclear powered fast attack submarine, and putting the parts in a downtown city park as part of a Cold War monument. Next slide, please. Here is the depiction of the Cold War monument in Steele Indian School Park, approved by the city. You can see the submarine parts in black there. There is the one on the right is the sail of the submarine, formerly called the conning tower, and way in the back on the left is the rudder. And in between is a series of signposts. This is a monument, not a memorial, and it's a museum monument. So it's there principally to educate others about the Cold War and the connectivity of the submarine force to the Cold War. Next slide, please. This is a depiction of what the sail would look like when it's reassembled. It came in three parts, a lower part, a upper part, and the diving planes in between. And here it's depicted with the skipper up on the top and the periscope. There are overall 65 tons of parts, which we had shipped from the state of Washington to Arizona. And they're sitting over in Papago Park at the moment on public display. Next slide, please. Here's a depiction of some people back by the rudder, and they're standing next to what we call a signpost. Next slide, please. We have a series of about 25 signposts that make this truly more of a museum and an educational thing than just a typical monument or memorial. Here's a typical signpost that says, how does a submarine go up and down? Most people have no idea how a submarine goes up and down. And you'll note down at the bottom of the signpost is a QR code. So if you had more questions about the submarine or that subject, you could use your e-device to find out. Next slide, please. The major themes of the monument, of course, are the Cold War and submarines and their connectivity. We make the case that the submarine force was a critical part of ending the Cold War. The Cold War started in 1946 and ended in 1991. 45 long years we were hiding under our desks. And the submarine force that we built, the 62 nuclear-powered fast attack submarines, each cost $1 billion, countered the Soviet awesome submarine force. And also the themes include, of course, the USS Phoenix, preservation of history, a place to reflect, a place to learn, especially for young people. And it's a great place to promote STEM programs. This is a perfect STEM example. Next slide, please. This is a short synopsis of our history of this project. We spent 8 years riding aboard the submarine, taking citizens just like yourselves. It got decommissioned and put into waterborne storage. We spent 18 years trying to get the parts from the Navy. We did. We spent about 15 years convincing the city of Phoenix to find a spot for us. That happened. We're now into a fundraising mode. Next slide, please. Here's a picture of the USS Phoenix on active duty on the surface, a rare picture. It tries never to be seen. So this was the one time it came up to come into port. Next slide, please. This is a depiction of the inside of an LA class submarine. And you can't see it very well, but the first 1/3 of the submarine is where 120 people are housed. That's where they eat, sleep, play, work, and do whatever they have to do. There's 5 bathrooms located in that area, about 100 feet by 33 feet. And these people stay down for as long as 3 months. The most constraining thing is the food supply. The back 2/3 of the submarine consists of the nuclear-powered, the nuclear reactor and all the machinery necessary to run it, including the gear that powers the very sophisticated propeller that's in the back. Next slide, please. We make the case that the submarine is among the most complicated machines ever made. It's a perfect STEM example. It's a perfect thing to drive STEM advocates and people that are fans of STEM into, as far as the submarine force is concerned. The submarine makes its own air, its own water. It knows how to navigate underwater, communicate underwater, listen to things and detect them and understand what they are. It has hundreds and hundreds of electronic sensors aboard. It targets other submarines and sinks them. It has weapons aboard, torpedoes, mines, cruise missiles. The hull technology itself is amazing stuff, allowing the submarine to go 1,000 feet or below. Next slide, please, and last slide. We hope that that this will make you familiar a little bit with the monument and associate it with STEM programs, and we hope it can be used to help promote STEM programs. If you happen to be the least bit interested in this kind of stuff, we would be more than happy to have you join us. Thanks very much. That was 6 minutes. Sorry, Jeremy.
You did. That was awesome. That was a lot. You did awesome pulling all that information in. And I learned a lot of things. I've heard this before on your presentation, but I learned new things. Like I didn't realize that you've been working on it for 30 years and working through all the different hoops to make it go. And just, just from being in this community, I think this is something that would really benefit Arizona to have access to see these sort of opportunities. So thank you for your work in doing that. And I imagine people, a lot of our attendees have additional questions. Please put them in the chat. And Pete, I would encourage you to put your email address in the chat as well, so that people can contact you and reach out with additional connections or work to connect with you.
Oh, okay, thanks.
So next I want to cue Airman First Class Nicholas Loftus, Explosive Ordnance Disposal with Luke Air Force Base. So thank you, Nicholas, for being here, and take it away.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. As he said earlier, I'm A1C Nicholas Loftus over at Luke Air Force Base, part of the Explosive Ordnance Disposal flight here out at Luke. As some of you may or may not know, our job as explosive ordnance disposal technicians is to basically blow things up, which in my mind is super awesome, and we get to have a lot of fun doing it. So if you can think of anything that does have explosives in it, whether it's an aircraft, a hand grenade, or something as big as a nuclear weapon, it's our job to handle that and make it safe. So essentially here at Luke, we're actually known as the busiest EOD flight in the Air Force. That's because our main priority is taking care of Barry M. Goldwater Range down in Gila Bend. And that's 1.4 million acres of range that we have to handle each year, rendering safe any explosive devices out there. So as it sounds, 1.4 million acres, that's definitely a lot of area for us to clear. Additionally, on top of the range, we also handle a lot of the aircraft here out at Luke, which is our F-16s and F-35s, and any explosive hazards that go along with them, which I'm actually going to show here in a couple minutes. I've got some replica and some dummy ordnance to show you guys. On top of that, any mass disposal of expired munitions is also something that we get to take care of every year. So the United States like to manufacture a lot of explosive devices, and over time they tend to go bad, and we have to go take them out to our range and blow them up. Last but not least, with some of the stuff that we take care of is supporting VIP missions. So when the president or the vice president or any major political figure come to Arizona, we get to go out there and assist them, making sure that they're safe, making sure that there's not any explosive devices. Now, some of the mission sets that we do not handle here at Luke, but that are covered across the Air Force EOD is our IED mission set, which is improvised explosive devices, or our nuclear mission set, which is working with nuclear weapons across the Air Force. On top of that, there's also DISCO, which is supporting our civil authorities on and off base, whether that's the local bomb squad or the local police department. When they roll up to Grandpa's house and they find a hand grenade in his basement, that is something that they get called out across the Air Force and ourselves to go take care of. Now, I'm going to bring us over to our left here and show you some of the stuff that we commonly see. I'll wait for that to pan over. Hopefully there's no connectivity issues. So like I said, we handle a lot of the explosive hazards out on aircraft, out on Luke. So something that we have here is our standard flare box, our countermeasures, which are basically something that's going to confuse any missiles heading towards the plane. So we get to go out and take care of these. On top of that, a lot here on Luke, we kind of have a love-hate relationship with these guys. These are BDU-33s. We get to go on the range and pick them up all the time. Right now, it's just a big hunk of metal, but usually it's got some sort of smoke charge in it. So when it hits the ground, the pilot can see what's coming out of it. Working our way up right here. I don't know if you can see it. I'll pick it up for you guys. This is a high explosive or a W white phosphorus rocket, basically a smoke rocket or a explosive rocket that again is something we see all the time out on our range. Like I said, our mission set varies all the time. Something like this is a homemade explosive device or an improvised explosive device, something that we'll use our robots to handle, or we'll send a team leader down in a bomb suit to take a look at. Again, we don't see this super commonly here out at Luke, luckily, but it is another one of our mission sets. So let's talk about STEM a little bit and how STEM relates to EOD and just the military in general. With our career field, we get to use a lot of crazy tools. Now, you might just say to yourself, this is just a water bottle, but this is something that we will actually fill with explosives, measure with a certain amount of fluid to make sure that we get the desired explosive effect on our improvised explosive devices. Or we use something here, which is just a little bit more complicated, where there's actually a metal plate inside of this device, where when the explosives inside detonate, it will form that metal plate into a very fast projectile that we can use to render safe and disarm some explosive devices. Now, some other things, like I said, we do deal with real big things up to nuclear weapons, but we also deal with small things. Whether it's a tiny grenade like this, we have to learn all the functioning on how it works and essentially how to render it safe. Again, something very, very small, one of these submunitions, we do work with pretty commonly. Anyways, guys, that's all the time I've got for today, but I do appreciate you guys bringing me in and let me talk about this. Everybody, you have a great day.
I just love the show and tell. I don't think we've had anybody do that yet, but I'm guessing a lot of people on here hoping that you might be able to do this for their own audiences later on. Awesome. So I think we can jump into questions. A lot of these were so diverse, different presentations. That's really cool. Can people please post some of your thoughts or questions that have come up in the chat? Yeah.
So
Kelly, looks like you have one to ask.
I was just going to say thank you from one veteran to another, right? It's really important that you understand how important today was for me as a Chief Operations Officer of SciTech, and really to expand the understanding of STEM opportunities in Arizona with all of our military installations and the vast network of veterans here. So there's a plethora of opportunities to not only engage them as mentors, but also volunteers. And sometimes they're a population that's not asked very often. So to Airman First Class, Nicholas, that was excellent. And kudos to let I know he's listening, right? Your supervisors need to know that you just have really given a great demonstration to a vast network. So that should go on your evaluation. And then to Pete, right? That longevity, that 35 years invested in a project, because as you read the banner in the back, pride runs deep. And veterans are a very specific group of people that stay connected, because Lyle and I work together in Afghanistan. So the idea that all of you on the call, ask them anything, they will share pretty much, the uniform off their back. They're willing to help and support. So if you do want the Air Force EOD group to showcase this in a classroom or to a group of your employees, or just highlight what's happening in Arizona and how the military really does support our commerce and, the people that are living here, the EOD group that runs the robots. How cool would it be to see the actual military robots, and that it is a lucrative career, not only in the military and get the on-the-job training, but then outside of the military as well. So I just wanted to thank all of our presenters personally so much for being here today.
All right, that's perfect. So we got a question about the training that you needed to be in each of your jobs. So that's probably a really important one to start. So maybe start with Lyle, and then Pete, and then Nicholas.
So I came into the Army as a supply person. So I went to Fort Lee, Virginia. Most of the, all of the military analysts go to Fort Huachuca to get their military training. So what training do you need? Obviously, basic training, basic military combat stuff. A lot of on-the-job training for what I do now. I've never been to school for it. I think I answered the question best I can.
Yeah, that was good.
What about Pete?
To be a submariner, you need to be smart. You need to be able to live with no windows. And you can be very proud of the submarine force. I was not a submariner. I was a helicopter pilot. So one of my jobs from time to time was to look for submarines. So you'd have to go hunting around with your little ball in the water there and try to hear where the submarine was and try to figure out how to track it, et cetera, et cetera. And I spent quite a bit of time in a helicopter trying to rescue people off submarines, pick them up, people with appendicitis or something like that, and haul them to some hospital somewhere. So I had a lot of experience in the Navy. I was in it for 27 years and I thoroughly enjoyed my experience. And when I got here, I got associated with this submarine really the submarine force is the most impressive part of the Navy that I'm aware of. I've never seen anybody that's more professional and more useful to us as a country than the submarine force. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
What about the youngest guy on the call, Airman First Class?
Yes, ma'am. So I actually joined the Air Force directly out of high school. About 2 weeks after I graduated high school, I shipped off for basic training. In terms of EOD school and all the training that we go through, it's about a year and 8 months long of tech school that includes going to multiple different bases to learn our trade. Half of our school is actually through a naval school out in Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. So we get to learn the best of all the different branches and all the, the plethora of knowledge and experience from past EOD techs. Definitely to become an EOD tech, you definitely need a lot of hands-on skill and creativity, because no call you go on is going to be like the one you went on last week. So there's definitely a lot of challenges to overcome, but in the long run, it is worthwhile.
We had a question in the chat about the types of learning disabilities does the military accept or not accept? Wonder if any of the three of you had comments on that.
So it's hard too, because it's not necessarily their position, right? It's a very technical based career field. So for everybody on the call, I'll just let you know that it's not necessarily, everybody has to go through their own MEPS initiation. You have to take a test. If you can pass your ASVAB and earn a certain score, it'll tell you all of the jobs that you're eligible for in the military. But then if you, for example, if you have dyslexia or if you have specific learning disabilities that they can help you with, it'll show up on your ASVAB score and they'll tell you what jobs you'll be able to do. So if Airman First Class wasn't able to read, it would probably impact his ability to understand the manuals to make sure he disassembles those explosive devices. But I'm sure all of us could mention there are people that have certain skills that excel and certain things that hold them back in the military. But, you have to be able to be fit and perform all of your duties. And, we kind of joke, right, about the Air Force versus Navy versus the Army, but there are certain skills that each career path accentuates and highlights. So there's so many opportunities, but as long as you can pass that initial test, the ASVAB, they'll let you know what you are able to do.
Cool. Looks like, yeah, we have a lot more questions. Kelly, have any suggestions for maybe a final question we should ask?
I think one great question for me as a veteran, I would love to know to each of our presenters, what would you have wished you had known before you joined? And it's great we have, Pete from a while ago, Lyle, recently out, well, more recent, and then currently serving. So let's start with Pete. What would you wish you have known about the military before you had joined?
My dad knew an admiral and he was very impressed with the Navy. So he said, okay, kid, you're going to the Naval Academy. So I went to the Naval Academy, arrived at the Naval Academy and noticed everybody was walking around in khakis. And I was sure that my dad had screwed up and sent me to West Point instead of the Naval Academy. So that's how dumb I was to begin with. I think that my experience was very fun in the Navy as far as driving a helicopter is concerned. I did all kinds of wacko things in a helicopter that I never would have imagined. And I don't think I would have done much differently. It would have been nice to be an ROTC guy instead of a Naval Academy guy. It would have been a lot more fun. But that's the way she goes. That's it, I think, for me.
Yeah, that's a great point. There are reserve officer training corps that are teaching students in advance what it would be like if you're going to go to the dark side on the officer
Right.
side. Right. What about you, Lyle?
So one of the first things that came to mind was that the Air Force. I wish I knew more about the Air Force. I mean, I just joined the Army, didn't know any better. And it seemed that they had a pretty good life, a little better than mine, it seemed to me. The Air Force has a little bit of higher standard of living. And then just what other opportunities are, more about the different jobs that were out there. And I mean, I took the ASVAB and they said, here's a bunch of jobs. And I went, okay, that sounds cool. No idea what I was doing. I would have liked to had a more informed decision sitting there on maps.
I agree. I was the same way. And that's how Lyle and I knew each other. We were both in logistics. But it was like, oh, sure, I'll take that job. All right, Airman First Class, what would you what would you say?
Well, if I wish I would have done more research and knew anything before I came into the Air Force, I wish I would have known how to fold my socks correctly, because you can't imagine how many times I got yelled at in boot camp. I'm just kidding. There are kind of like Lyle said, and I'm not meaning to bash on any other branches, but just before I had signed up to join the Air Force, I actually had a contract I was about to sign with the Army to go be an infantryman. And I am so glad I never did that. Working with all the different branches in my joint service school, I got to see the bad, the worse, and the ugly, and sometimes the good things. But, the Air Force, in my opinion, is definitely the way to go. But who knows, maybe I'm just a little bit biased.
No, we agree. We all know you have the best food too. So if there are any other
I'll jump in
veterans-
on that and say that is definitely true. Like as an Army Cavalry Scout, 10 years, every time when I was in Afghanistan, we looked at the Air Force barracks and kind of just longingly, as you went, like, oh, look at what they got going on. So,
like, hey, how do they have internet? Like, what's going on over there? Yeah, the Air Force definitely.
My favorite story about the whole thing was with the Air Force is we had a situation where our camp had to be completely rebuilt, and the engineers built camp. They were Air Force engineers, showed up and rebuilt our camp on this called the Combat Operation Post. And we were like, wow, this is so awesome. And one of the engineers is like, I wouldn't sleep here. I'm like, I'm so sorry, this is all we could give you guys. I was like, oh, thanks a lot.
Yeah, if there are any other veterans on the call, we would love for you to post in the chat. We would like to highlight your service as well. The banter is great. We're going to break out into breakout rooms for about 10-15 minutes so we can have more specific discussions with Pete, Nicholas, and Lyle. But yeah, we thank everybody for their service, no matter if it was 2 years or if it was lifetime career like some of us did. So, thank you for protecting and serving, wearing the uniform, getting up and folding those socks. Because Nicholas, did you ever get your foot locker flipped? Some people just don't know.
Yes, most definitely. We all learn a little bit in boot camp, and when you decide to shove some socks in the back so your drill instructor doesn't find them, they don't like that too much, and all your belongings go across the dorm room.
That's right. All right, Hope. So I know you're setting up breakout rooms for us. I would love to just chit chat and catch up with the vets all day. So shout out to Fritz, who is also on our team. He's Army veteran, and then Jim and Susan Knoll are both retired Air Force. So thank you guys for joining the call today.
Yeah, we had a good conversation. We, as Carol said, we picked Nicholas's brain on what his STEM hands-on or STEM training before influenced what he's doing now and how he sees that going on in the future. And he said that definitely physics principles in his hands-on training, even in high school, building the little marshmallow, and stick bridges, helped, understand some of the principles behind what he is doing even now. And so in that the, basic engineering skills are critical. And so we had a good conversation and we learned lots more about Carol in her history in the military, and it was awesome to hear about. It was very cool. And then we had a slight conversation on, the fact that STEM wasn't mentioned back then. It wasn't a priority. And so, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a word, right? It wasn't identified. It was just, you did the job. So that's great. What about Douglas? What about your group? Oh, you're muted. Classic Zoom.
There we are.
Okay.
Third time's the charm. Beg your pardon, Kelly. We had CSO Reina Guerra with us, and we were honored with Representative, I'm sorry, I believe her name's Bethany, or no, Rosanna. And we had a terrific share out by Elizabeth Perkins, who mentioned she has first graders. She has a father and husband that have been in the service. And she does some virtual tours during this pandemic up there in Flagstaff, where she's done virtual touring with animals and even her garden, which is thinking out of the box entirely. And I could certainly have some fun with that, with some engineering type projects that sit around the house. So terrific share out from Elizabeth. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, we were so excited to have her on. I was like, oh, she's a teacher. I can tell by her background. All right, Jake, what about your group?
So our group, we talked about our diverse backgrounds to start with, but I think the one thing I like to focus on is Ray brought up a good point at the end of our conversation about, we talked a little bit about what it takes to get into the military and the jobs that are available in the military, but what about when they're leaving the military and the jobs that they can fill afterwards with the skill set that they have? So I thought that was an excellent point in the conversation. He brought up that the military generally breeds good work ethic and things like that, and just the skill set they come out with and what jobs they could have. And all through the whole conversation, I'm getting a little bit more jealous of Lyle's beard, because I don't think I'm ever going to get there, but I'm definitely going to try this year, I think. Yeah.
He has had that beard since I've known him. He does need a haircut though, but trim up that, you're getting old, buddy.
I trimmed a lot of the beard off recently, actually.
Too funny. There were a lot of male soldiers in Afghanistan that were always jealous of Lyle's beard, because we'd be out of uniform and they could grow. Some couldn't grow. So anyway, sidetrack. Well, again, it is really important for us to consider how we can prepare students. I had a great conversation with Jim before he jumped off, who served over 20 years in the Army and then 27 as a civilian contractor. The idea that we're discussing of how do we prep them in advance, hands-on learning, being able to question, design, create, build, and also have a voice of, I like what I'm doing. How can I transfer it into a career? So understanding that there's STEM everywhere. And so then also the opportunities here in Arizona, really highlighting the reason that Arizona continues to thrive are some of these defense contracts that are located in Arizona, including Boeing and Raytheon and all of these other organizations that support the Department of Defense. And then of course, looking beyond and having Lyle on today representing something that I didn't know the DIA, I didn't really know much about it as a young child, and understanding that my military career could lead into working with the Defense Intelligence Agency and utilizing those problem-solving skills at a much larger scale. So opening up not only our students' eyes to what possibilities exist here in Arizona through all of the different military installations that we have on ground, but also the opportunities to open, those 23-year-olds getting out of college, maybe they are a chemist, and the opportunities they could work in the Department of Defense at different locations around the state of Arizona. So again, kudos. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to all of our veterans. I appreciate your service. Proud to have served with you. And let me share the screen, because we are going to have our next STEM Community Lunchtime Conversations will be on Thursday, December 10th. And it's astronomy, bringing the stars to you. So,
and Jim is actually on the call today, so he'll be one of our presenters for this. So we're really excited Jim, that you were able to join us, see the flow, and present at our next one. We will have a break next Thursday. The Thursday we'd normally do this will be Thanksgiving, so we won't be doing that, but we're excited to come back on December 10th and learn about astronomy outreach from several of the different observatories.
Excellent. So with that, enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you to our veterans.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Have a good day.